Most millennials see the world as full of opportunities, and they trust themselves most to solve local challenges. Today, I'm with Clarissa Delgado, CEO of Teach for the Philippines, and Gian De La Rama, co-founder and CEO of Innovantage. Gian and Clarissa work with a lot of millennials, and it's interesting to see how this generation is shaping their respective fields of education and technology. Clarissa and Gian are also panelists for Rappler's Move Awards. The deadline for nominations is already this Friday, September 16. So you can send your questions on Twitter and Facebook via the hashtag MillennialPH. So good afternoon, Gian and Clarissa.
Good afternoon,
Thank you for
David.
being with us this afternoon. Can you briefly talk about your advocacy and how the millennials fit into it?
Sure. So Teach for the Philippines is a nationally recognized organization that's truly representative, I believe, of a movement led by millennials. The average age of our fellows and our alumni is around 25, and our staff is around 31. What we do is we try to get millennials engaged in building the nation from the beginning of their career, and to continue this for the rest of their lives. Our fellows and our alumni, they teach for 2 years in public schools and then continue on in roles that are involved in public service or in education or in other ways and means.
All right, Gian.
So, Innovantage is a software technology company. So we live and breathe technology in the company. And yes, we do have a lot of millennials in the office. In fact, I used to joke with my team that I'm probably like the second oldest, if not the oldest person in the company. So they're firmly within that demographic. And starting a company, especially right now, I would think it's also an advocacy. Mainly because we help provide jobs for people. And second, and I always tell this to people who talk to me, is I want to show them that it's possible for someone to succeed as an entrepreneur. And I'm hoping that there will be a lot more entrepreneurs who will follow over the next few months and few years. Yeah, and mostly the guys in the team, they're very technology driven. They live and breathe code. They're all developers mostly. So, and dealing with these millennials is actually both a joy and a challenge.
All right. Given that you both work a lot with millennials, the term millennial itself actually gets a bad reputation when it's associated, especially in the Western perspective, with the words entitled, vain, pushy. But are these the right terms for Filipino millennials? Do you agree with these terminologies or this description of millennials?
I would disagree to some extent. Working a lot with my team, and I've seen them to be very goal-oriented, to be very passionate about what they do. And of course, there will be some instances that people might seem pushy or vain, or in my field, being pushy is actually a good thing. Because as an entrepreneur, you always have to push against either convention or the odds. So you really need to be a little bit courageous to be able to do that. And I understand that there is this stigma, so to speak, that millennials might be entitled, might be vain to some extent. But I'd argue that it's probably that happens in every generation. And I would think in the previous generation, early on, people would probably describe the same thing, say the same things about, let's say, Gen Xers, right? So it's simply the generation reacting to how they grew up, to the world around them,
To the
changes, yes. And people may or may not understand what the new generation is all about. But I believe eventually things will even out.
I mean, I think Filipino millennials are the same as maybe the global definition of millennials, in the sense that they always ask why. And I feel like that's something that characterizes us. I'm going to lump myself in there as an older millennial. But we don't take things for granted, and we don't accept things just because that's the way they've always been. So we're always asking, why is it this way? Why this, not that? That said, I think that strengths and weaknesses are really two sides of the same coin. So when you say the word pushy to me, I think that's maybe a deficit way of looking at an asset, which is to me impatience maybe, or efficiency. And I think technology, like the field Gian's working in, you're obviously in a technology-oriented social enterprise yourself in Rappler, has made us more efficient. So not necessarily more effective, but more efficient. And so that causes us to be then impatient, or wanting to be on the perceived as impatient. I think what makes Filipinos unique, in general, and then specifically maybe the Filipino millennial, and maybe Gian, your thoughts here, is our sense of the other. In other words, pakikipagkapwa-tao. So I know that maybe a global perspective of millennials is their individual, but I feel like Filipinos are more about working as a collective rather than an individual. And so I think, again, strengths are weaknesses, just two different sides of the same coin. This is an area where it might impede our efficiency, but our desire to work together, our desire to understand the other will always make us special, and is something I think is a positive about our culture. I don't know
It's
if you
actually
see that.
interesting because the definition, or what you said about the sense of having the sense of the other, being makikipagkapwa-tao,
Yeah.
it's actually opposite of what the global
Exactly.
definition.
Exactly.
So can we go specifically, like in your field, in technology and education, what are millennials like? I mean, how vital are they in your field, and what are the usual roles that they take?
Well, since I mentioned earlier that most of my company are composed of millennials, they're extremely vital. Without them, I have no company. So, and especially in technology, I guess this generation understands technology more than any previous generation because they lived through it. Right? When I grew up, we were in the times of Betamax, VHS. Right now, there's no tape. Right? It's all digital, and it's already a second nature to them. In fact, I have a 20-month-old daughter who knows how to use an iPad already. Imagine, she can navigate through menus to reach YouTube. Imagine my horror that she can do that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, it's in that you need to understand that people who live in the digital sphere should be managed differently as well from those who didn't live in a digital sphere. So I guess in my company, for example, I try to not only listen to what they say as a CEO, but I also look through Facebook, sometimes Twitter, to see how they're reacting. Yeah, because it's important. Sometimes
See, that's one of
my-
the best gauges of your
Correct.
employees now is social
Yeah,
media.
you have to listen through social media. You have to filter a lot of the things as well, so that you can act on it. But at least, to some extent, it's actually a lot easier for me to manage them because I know their sentiments, even though they don't tell it to me directly. So social media sometimes becomes a superpower to a
Yeah.
manager because knowing what to listen for and then acting on it will actually help you adapt and manage the millennials better.
Yeah,
Very
so I think your specific question, if I just restate it, is that how are they important in your field, right? I think they're important in every field. The median age of our 100 million population country is 24 and a half years old. So I think it doesn't matter what field you're in, you're
Yeah.
gonna have to hire millennials ASAP. And our demographics are just quite clear. We are a young population. That's what makes us an economic tiger. So specifically, I think they're important in every field. As Gian said, Teach for the Philippines would not exist without our millennials. How do they help us, or what do they do for us? Really, I follow everything that Gian said. I mean, we use social media, but I think for me, my general rule with the millennials on my team, myself, is believe in the power of youth. We set the expectations really, really high. And this is applicable no matter what culture, no matter what age. We're in education, so we believe that you set high expectations at any age, even in elementary, and the same with adults. And 10 times out of 10, I have been amazed at how not only they've met those expectations, but exceeded them. As long as you are clear about what you want, what you need, and how
With your-
it helps
yes.
the others, they have exceeded my expectations. I cannot express how amazed and proud I am to work with the team that I'm working with, and I couldn't be happier to work with a millennial
Agree.
force. I mean, it's amazing.
Okay. Let's jump into technology. You've said it earlier, technology is both a blessing and there are advantages and disadvantages.
Strengths or weaknesses.
Yes.
Same.
So for millennials, we grew up with it. And we're doing amazing things with it. I'm saying we because we're also millennials. But it's been said that with the rapid evolution of technology, in the future there might be no real jobs for millennials or future generations to come. What's your take on this scenario? Do you think the millennials are on the advantageous side of this?
I remember reading a while back. I think during the start of the Industrial Revolution, someone somewhere said the same thing.
Of
Now,
course.
when the steam engine came online,
Mm-hmm.
people would lose jobs. It's the same thing. It happens whenever there's a tectonic shift in technology. I'm not talking about digital technology per se, but technology in general. Whenever there's a
always the
tectonic
fear.
shift, there is always, the fear that people will lose jobs. And I believe in humanity in general. One of the best traits of humanity is we can adapt to whatever situation. So I'm pretty sure 10, 20, 50, 60 years from now, people will still have jobs. People will still do something. Might be different from what they're doing now, but a job is a job, no matter what time or age you were born in.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, I think no doubt the technology revolution is here, right? But I just read, I think last month, McKinsey Global published this article. They're talking exactly about that, but using data to support their claims. And the truth is, after doing a whole bunch of studies, they realized that technology, while it will eliminate a number of, let's say, automated jobs, like repeated jobs where you're doing the same thing over and over again, technology cannot and will never be able to replace things like human development, people development, management, unpredictable problem solving, ambiguous scenarios, creativity. You can't eliminate art and then be like, a computer is going to make this up.
Yeah.
So I agree with Gian. I think that there are areas that technology will affect greatly. My push with my staff, with our fellows, with the children we teach in our public schools is we teach them to focus on analytical and critical thinking skills. That being a necessity no matter where you are. And then also to think about human skills, so empathy, being able to connect with other human beings. Again, I don't believe that technology can take over management or human development. There is always going to be a space for a teacher, whether that's in the boardroom or in the classroom.
I see. Siguro, for the next question, I think let's focus on education because it's pretty obvious for Gian. Like, how are millennials for example, in Teach for the Philippines, how are they using technology to empower or to do what they're passionate about?
Sure. I think there is, let's say, many ways to cut that pie. Are we able to fully integrate technology in the classroom? That's a challenge because we have internet difficulties in some of our schools, right? But our fellows on a technical basis do what they can. We have partners with a lot of organizations that are offering offline technology. They're doing wonderful. We also furnish them with tablets, so they're able to do a lot with that in their classroom. Now, on a high level, our fellows have also been able to galvanize the power of social media to bring attention to the things that they face in the classroom. So what they're doing is helping bring out the voice of the public school teachers in the Philippines to the social media and the broader consciousness of the Filipino people. And I think that is extremely important. Now more than ever, probably because of our advocacy, public schools has been in the front page. And in fact, recently we were cited as one of the top 10 employers for liberal arts majors. And so public school teaching, education is now rightfully so back in the national consciousness.
It's a career. You can make a career out
Well,
of
we
it.
hope to keep it that way. Because I can say that growing up, we never really talked much about it was never really a topic of interest in the Philippine culture, which was not always the case. When my parents were growing up, they definitely, and my grandparents especially, the Philippines had one of the best public school systems in Asia. So let's get back there, right?
In terms of technology, we were talking earlier about how technology is changing the workplace. Does that have an impact on how millennials see work?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, the use and the creation of technology, can do several things. And to the millennials, it actually makes them do their jobs better and more efficiently. But it also presents them with a challenge because in our specific case, we are building tools and solutions that, to some extent, may eliminate jobs in the future. I'm mindful of that. We're working right now with natural language processing, chatbots, and eventually artificial intelligence. Imagine where those three will actually be in the future. And it's always about trying to, when engaging these millennials to build and use these pieces of technology, we should never ever forget the human side. You know,
Of course.
chatbots still talk to people. Yeah. And people have their own idiosyncrasies, they have their own kulo. Diba? You have to be able to manage that.
Everyone's
And-
happy in the same way and unhappy in different ways.
Correct. So, and that's where us being humans come in. It's especially right now, the ability to interact and to adapt into to a conversation is essentially a human trait. Bots can't do it right now.
Absolutely.
Right? And in teaching, and I used to teach as well, you need to be able to adapt to your audience, in this case, your students, in real time. You see their faces, you see them frowning. You have to be able to adjust to that. You need to be able to engage them. That's not yet possible in technology. Although I always tell them, eventually it will get there. So we'd rather be the ones creating that rather than be negatively affected by it.
All right.
I don't know. I don't know if I'd ever find consolation in the arms of an Autobot.
Well, yeah.
And the emotion of it.
Of course.
I think that's one of the big things. Let's talk about how millennials impact their communities. Teach for the Philippines works with young teachers to help improve the state of education in public schools. Innovantage is a young team that also creates solutions for entrepreneurs and companies. How do your partners, your millennials, impact your vision for your companies? And what about their being millennial that makes your advocacy grow?
Sure. Mine's super quick. First off, I'm going to say their energy. So this is by far 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, what principals always say amazes them about our fellows. They are super energetic, super gung-ho, super willing to do anything, absolutely anything, to learn, to experience, to more so than before. Maybe, at least in my experience, our millennials have not been afraid to roll up their sleeves to get any kind of job done. So that's been fantastic. How are they going to move our advocacy forward? Well, as I mentioned, the average age, the median age, of our entire population is 24 and a half years old. So the future belongs in the hands of this generation, this millennial generation. They're gonna be who takes it's their responsibility to take our country forward. They are 100% a part and parcel of the future of not only Teach for the Philippines, but the Philippines in general.
Well, in our case, we've started to target millennials as a customer segment of the company. In fact, they'll be the largest customer segment in the next few months. And that is actually how we develop and design our products. So solutions created by millennials for millennials. And that's what we do, for example, in our product Nudge, which is essentially a chatbot. So it's the millennials who are familiar with chat in general that you don't need to teach them how to do chat. So imagine being able to work within chat, do your job within chat.
Absolutely.
So that connection, we try to exploit the innate understanding of millennials of technology. We don't need to teach them how to use chat; they just do it, right? And how do these millennials move the company forward? Just like what Clarissa said, it's basically they're the ones going to manage and run the company and push the company forward in the future. And I'd also like to add that aside from their energy, because they do have lots of energy.
They do.
It's also their ability to take in a lot of information and then try to make something out of it. I've seen my team. When I started the company a few years back, I tend to micromanage. I tell them, do this, do that. The past few, I think, year and a half, I believe, I started to push myself back. I let them do their own stuff. So I just give certain goals, and I let them essentially run with it. So I see some of my guys just read all of these articles about artificial intelligence, natural language processing, and programming, and then they build products out of it. That's amazing. And I'm always amazed at their capability to generate, products that will be valuable in the future with little or no input from myself. Something
High
like that.
expectations, no?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
set
high
them and they meet them.
Correct.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about millennials having advocacies, right? Or being very strong on advocacy. Where do you think millennials got this sense of advocacy, the sense of the other?
I think maybe there is a stronger sense, and maybe this has something to do with the way we grew up. And so I grew up at the latter half, not even half, latter 1/8 of the martial law movement. So I was never told that I couldn't do anything. I did not have to follow a curfew. I did not have to be careful what I said. So growing up, and I think I speak maybe more so of the people on my team and my fellows when their average age is 25. These guys have a lot more, are more empowered to feel ownership over the world around them. That's why maybe we ask why. There have been no wars during our generation, never a time of, yes, there's been scarcity, but largely there's been no global war where multiple countries have been involved. I mean, Middle East, of course, aside, and no doubt those problems are present and significant, but in our context, it has really given a kind of empowered ownership of the world around them. So yes, they do have a right to feel and advocate for the things they believe in because they feel that they can change it. And I think that's beautiful, and that's exactly what I wish for my country, that its citizens feel like through their efforts they can change. Now, again, is that representative of the 100 million population of which many don't finish a college degree? I think maybe that's why we voted in President Duterte. We wanted change. We want it to happen now.
Yeah. And a big chunk of his voters are actually millennials. When we went around last year
Yeah,
to
sure.
different schools, they're all like young people, students wanting change.
Yeah.
Well, I guess for a millennial, the ability to effect change in the world around them, that ability is greater now
Than ever before.
Than ever before. A post in Facebook can
Can change the world.
literally change the world. It
The
can
Arab
either
Spring.
it can do irreparable harm or fantastic positive progress.
Absolutely.
It's that power that essentially empowers the millennials to, and I hope that people would start doing it or using that more responsibly as well.
Yes.
Never before can individuals or a generation shape where the entire world or the entire country is going. Whether it be in the political sphere, in education,
Absolutely.
in technology, or in business, we're all here. The millennials are here. 10 years from now, those in the upper end of the bracket will be leading industries, and those in the lower end of the bracket will probably be in mid-management, executive management positions already, or in leadership positions in any industry or advocacy they're in. So they have that power and they have that ability to effect change, and and for many of them, it's just not being used. Maybe they
What's
don't
that
know about
Spider-Man? My favorite quote: "With great power comes great
great
responsibility."
That's a favorite quote of this generation.
it. Correct.
We have a question from social media from @JunG Jamie 165. Do millennials possess financial management skills for sustainable startup tech ventures? I think this is for you.
I would say that given my experience, speaking with young startup founders, it's still not yet there. To be able to manage the finances of any company, you need to be able to manage your finances yourself. You cannot be the financial manager or CEO of the company if you can't even manage your own finances. And hopefully, I want people or millennials who want to go into business learn about managing their cash flow first, because it's still not there. There's a lot of things happening, especially in the startup world, that will help educate everybody on financial literacy. They should focus on that first, making sure that you have enough to be able to do what you need to do. You have a buffer and so on and so forth. Now, these things has to be learned before you embark on something like starting a business. As I mentioned earlier, right now you have a lot of possibilities. You have a lot of power to affect change. Sometimes slowing down and learning will actually help you more.
I
Before
couldn't
you-
agree more. Financial literacy is something that we definitely need to train more on.
Okay. I think, so to wrap up the discussion na lang, one last question. How important is it to recognize millennials in what they're doing? Like last year, Clarissa was, you were the finalist and winner for the Move Awards. How did it help you? Or how are awards like these helpful to millennials?
Yeah, I think first it was such an honor to be part of the Move Awards last year and to be that eventually to win for Teach for the Philippines to win the Global Mover Award. I think why it's important to recognize millennials is first off to I think shift the conversation from a wholly negative, why are they so vain, pushy, impatient, to a more positive tone of voice. So I think we need to pivot that strategy. People don't learn when they're being, under punitive conditions, but people are encouraged to be better, to become the best version of themselves when they're given positive encouragement. So I think there's definitely room for the kind of recognition that Rappler is doing, as well as many other organizations. And I think the other important thing and the other important help that they give is that they continue to encourage all of us to, I guess, two things: to not give up on the Philippines. I think that's very important. We need, if we're going to feel ownership over something, let it be our inang bayan, right? Let it be our country. And the second thing is that it encourages us to work together. So it broadens our sphere. So what the Global Mover Award did for Teach for the Philippines is that it broadened our sphere to all these other organizations and other millennials who we could work with. And that continues to encourage us, again, to want to work with other Filipinos to make this country the best version of itself.
Right. Ian?
In the same vein, it's actually recognizing millennials so that the other millennials will know whatever they're doing is possible, is attainable.
Inspiring others to
Yeah,
do the
to
same.
inspire. In our case, I tell some people that I just want to show people that what I'm doing, being an entrepreneur, can work in this country. It's not, being an entrepreneur is not reserved for a certain group of people. Anybody can actually, start their own business and be successful. I am not a student. I actually shifted out in college to another course, but it didn't stop me from starting. I believe this is my third or fourth business already. It's about showing people that it's possible, showing everybody that with enough inspiration, perspiration, and teamwork, you can, and you set your mind to do this. It is possible, and also to be able to not only inspire and show people that it's possible, but also to be in recognizing millennials, you'll also be able to show probably other generations, right? Who probably
Don't believe in
don't believe in millennials, or maybe is the source of these statements that it's not as bad as you would think. Mark Zuckerberg is a millennial. I don't hear people complaining that he's vain, entitled, and pushy. Those are the same traits that led probably him or other entrepreneurs to start billion-dollar businesses, right? Again, everything has to be done in context, obviously, but yeah, it's showing these millennials that it's possible, and it's also telling them that you're there, you can do it, you have the capability to build empires, so to speak.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Gian and Clarissa,
Thank you.
Clarissa for
Thank you,
joining us.
David.
Those were very interesting points and insights on how millennials are creating ripples of change in this country. So the nomination for Rappler's Move Awards, where Clarissa and Gian are panelists, ends on September 16. You can nominate millennial movers in 5 categories: creative movers, earth movers, civic movers, digital movers, and industry movers. For more information, visit www.rappler.com/moveawards. This is Rappler Talk. Thank you for joining us. you.